and welcome to Edison TV. Today, I'm joined by Brian Tenner, Chief Executive Officer, and Liam Gray, Chief Financial Officer of Nanoco. Nanoco are listed on the main market on London, capitalised at around £90 million, and they're a provider of nanomaterials into a number of different applications. Brian, many thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Good. And then just to start with, could you just start by giving us a brief overview of Nanoco's technology and the range of things it can be used for?
Sure, Dan. So fundamentally, our technology is a platform technology. And what do I mean by a platform? What I mean is a technology that can be used in multiple different use cases, in multiple different markets, in multiple different applications. So for example, on the CFQD side, or the cadmium-free quantum dot side, the dots can be used in TVs, they can be used in lights, they can be used in greenhouses, they can be used in image-guided surgery. So that's an example of the platform technology applications for CFQDs. On the sensing side, so this is infrared sensing, then there's a really long list of use cases and applications, whether it's quality control, whether it's driver monitoring systems inside a vehicle, whether it's face recognition, iris recognition, security, seeing in the dark, seeing through fog, etc., etc. It's a really long list of potential applications for infrared sensing. So that's what we mean, fundamentally. These are nanomaterials that absorb and emit energy, and we can tune that to different wavelengths, different energies, different applications.
Great, thank you. And Nanoco, you're currently suing Samsung for patent infringement. Can you tell us about the background to that and the current status of that project, and perhaps look at any likely timescales for completing the litigation process?
Yeah, so we started working in 2006 with Samsung. They actually came to us with a problem that they didn't know how to solve. They couldn't figure out how to make cadmium-free quantum dots and how to make them at an industrial scale. Our founder, Nigel Pickett, had already written and filed a number of patents in this area, so we had effectively already solved this problem. So we worked collaboratively with Samsung for 6 or 7 years. And then we're pretty disappointed, to say the least, when that collaboration ended, and maybe less than a year later, Samsung actually launched a TV with cadmium-free quantum dots in it. And we were disappointed that they hadn't taken out a license over our technology, and equally they hadn't signed a supply agreement with us or one of our partners to provide them with quantum dots. So we had some informal conversations with them, but when that got us nowhere, we actually had to start the formal litigation process to defend our IP and to protect our shareholder value. In terms then of the litigation and where it's at, it's really got two streams. The first stream is something called inter partes review. That's when the patent office is actually looking at the validity of the patents. And the decision of the patent office is due by the 19th of May. It could be sooner than that, but at the latest, it's going to be the 19th of May. And they'll tell us whether or not the 5 patents and the 47 individual claims in those patents, if they're valid. Assuming at least one of those is valid, we can then carry on with the trial process, so the court process. The court process is in the Eastern District of Texas. It's currently on hold pending the outcome of the IPRs, which, as I said, we'll know the answer in a few weeks' time. Once that court stay is lifted, we're expecting the trial to be rescheduled for the second half of this year. At the trial, a jury will actually decide if Samsung have infringed our IP, and they will also come up with a damages number. This all happens in 1 week or a one week time frame. Now, after that, assuming it goes our way, and the same is also true in the IPRs, assuming those go our way, Samsung can appeal both processes. The IPR appeals typically last anywhere between 12 and 18 months. So it's a relatively well-controlled or tighter time frame. Whereas the trial appeal process, that can go back and forward, 2, 3, 4 times, and it could be 2, 3, 4 years plus for that process. However, assuming the verdict in the trial goes our way and Samsung are found guilty of infringing our IP, every day that goes past, more TVs are sold, more units that break our IP are sold. So if you like, our damages number is going up every day from whatever the jury start with in the second half of this year. So that actually puts quite a lot of pressure on Samsung to come to a settlement or a negotiated settlement rather than just keep appealing for 2, 3, 4 years. Because as I say, every day the amount of damages goes up. It would be in Samsung's interest to get to a negotiated settlement. And in terms of the board's attitude to a negotiated settlement, we've always said that as long as we get fair value for our patent, then we don't mind whether it's an enforced court decision or a negotiated decision. The one thing I would say, though, is fair value in the board's mind means it reflects the global coverage that we've got for all of our patents, so not just the United States. And it also reflects the full life of our patents. So whether that's going out to 2028 or 2035, we feel that any negotiated settlement, as long as it reflects both those factors, then as long as it delivers fair value, we're happy.
Great, no, thank you, very helpful. And moving away from the litigation, so you're currently engaged in your 4th successive package of work to develop infrared sensing materials to be used, on the route to commercialization, I guess, for sort of sensing applications. Can you talk about, I guess, the pathway there and the next steps with that project?
Sure. So we've got multiple different materials with multiple different customers, but if I focus on our significant European customer, because that's the most advanced of our customers and our materials, we have one material that's effectively already production ready. It just needs final production validation, signed off for ISO standards. And the second material that we started developing for the European customer a couple of years ago, we're currently scaling that up, and we're hoping that in the second half of this year, so before December 2022, we'll get it to the same stage of readiness as that first material, i.e. it will be production ready, and it's literally just then waiting for a purchase order from our customer, which they can initiate themselves, or it could be initiated because their customer has decided to adopt the technology. One thing I should emphasize is that our major European customers already published its commercial roadmaps to production, and those very clearly imply that they expect commercial production of their product during 2023. So if you work back from 2023, if it's the back end of 23, you can see that we should have some production order visibility at the back end of 22. Even if we don't actually start making material until early 23. So that's what we said publicly, and we're still on track to deliver production order visibility in the second half of 2022. And I think a final key point to mention on this is we don't know what the first application will be. It could be a niche application that only needs a few million units of production each year. But even if it is a niche application, we think whatever that application is, it will then grow across the consumer electronics ecosystems, and equally demand for that individual application will grow. And with our current break-even revenue figure only being 6 million a year, and Runcorn capable of making material worth around 100 million pounds a year, we think we'll very quickly get to a break-even point and then push on past that. And equally, then if the first application or one of the early applications is actually, say it was a mobile phone handset or something with tens, if not hundreds of millions of units, then we would very, very rapidly start utilizing a very meaningful proportion of that Runcorn production capacity and start generating good returns and positive cash flows for the business and shareholders.
Great, thanks, Brian. And now turning to you, Liam. So Nanoco's been on a long It's been a long path to commercialization. It does look as if there's a few strands coming together, potentially in the nearer term, both in terms of IP and the commercial business, but you've yet to generate commercial revenues. Can you discuss how far the cash runway reaches on your current cost base, and also discuss what you've done to extend it?
Sure, Dan. So we recently communicated that our cash runway currently extends to the first half of calendar year 23. Now, this goes out a bit further than our previous forecasts, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first one is our commercial pipeline, which obviously with the extensions to the project with the European electronics customer has increased that a bit. And the other side to that is the cost base. So we've been working hard on the cost base, on reductions, and an example of that is the move from Manchester to consolidate our operations in Runcorn. Now, them two things, obviously have a very positive impact on our cash runway, and critically, our cash runway now extends past our key value inflection points, which are the litigation sometime this year, and obviously expected visibility on the production orders from our European electronics customer.
Great, yeah, perfect, thanks. And looking at the sort of variances here, how does that cash runway change if you win further development work with other customers, or if the major customer decides not to proceed with commercialization?
Yeah, so if we take the second part of that question first, obviously if the major customer decides to end the project at the end of the current extension, and assuming there's no other customer to replace their revenues or to act as an anchor company for us, then it's likely we look at our options and we look at going down to an IP shell, mainly to protect the value of the lawsuit. Now, obviously, in reality, it may not be that simplistic. It may not be the customer has a go, no-go situation, maybe a bit more nuanced. And in that situation, we'll look at our options, assess where we are in terms of our cash runway and our cost base, and make a decision from there. Now, on the first part of the question about how the cash runway extends, should we win any further work? We have a very strong operational leverage in our business, which means that any additional revenue flows pretty much all the way down through to cash. Obviously, any increased cash will have a positive impact on our cash runway, to send that out further than where it is today.
Great, very helpful. Liam, Brian, many thanks for your time today.